guys, I'm not going to say this is going to be a quick video because I get told in the comments that I always say this is a quick video, just doing a quick video. This is just a reaction video to the Springboks victory in Scotland against Edinburgh. It was a very, very frustrating game to watch. The scoreline in the end, the Boks won well. The scoreline flatters the Boks, I think. I think all credit. Sorry, there was just an announcement came through. All credit to Scotland. They played extremely well. They spoiled the Boks ball very well. It was a very sloppy performance from the Springboks for me. Very frustrating. I think the number of handling errors. They looked rusty. They looked like a bit out of sorts, and they looked like Scotland got the better of them in terms of just disrupting their game plan. And good for them. I mean, listen, Scotland are a tough team to play. They're a very tricky team. They would have gone out to stop the Boks momentum, to stop their physicality, and they did that well for most of the game. So you've got to give them credit for that. The Boks, they were sloppy though. It wasn't a great performance from them. They scored some lovely tries, don't get me wrong, but not the best performance in terms of clinical way they operated. There was a number of times where the handling errors, the kickoffs, receipts were pretty bad. Lineouts, the first couple of lineouts they missed. There was one point which I didn't understand their tactics at the time, and it could have been because of the pressure that Scotland put on. And as I said, this is a hot take straight off the game. Makazole Mapimpi was off the field with a yellow card. Scotland were on the attack. The Boks got the ball back, and then they kicked it up and under in their own 22, which made absolutely no sense. I don't know, just some of the stuff they did in that game, you could see there'll be some good talkings too in the match review. Rusty won't be happy with that. He'll definitely not be somebody who's overjoyed. They'll be happy with the win because it was a tricky game, and Scotland can be a tricky team to play. But it's like so many other Scotland games against South Africa. Scotland sort of fired for 60-odd minutes but didn't really score when it counted. They didn't really. I mean, they had one try that was disallowed, which you felt very sorry for them because it was a lovely move, and they should have probably got points from that. But knock on sort of disallowed that try. It just felt like they didn't really trouble the Boks too much. Otherwise, there was a period in the second half where they got back to 4 points from the Boks, and you thought, well, if the momentum starts going their way now, but that's where the experience of the Boks team sort of shone through, and they came home to win. They won the big battles that mattered. They got the knock-ons and the turnovers when it mattered, and they got out of their own half. And that's the experience of that Boks team with the World Cup winners that comes through there. But still, overall, not a great game. Boks were still by far the better team, I think, on the day. And you saw, when they brought the 7 forwards on, that nuclear squad sort of took over. It took them a while to get going. The scrums, of course, saved them. But the Boks scrum is still an awesome beast. And you can see why a lot of overseas teams are going to carry on calling for the scrums to be taken out of the game. That was certainly the Boks saving grace today. Whenever they needed something, they got into a scrum, and won a penalty, got them out of their own half. So I think there's a lot of food for thought for the Springboks going into the game against England. England will be desperate to win. After their loss against Australia, that was a great game, by the way, and good for Australia to win that one as well. 3-0 for the Southern Hemisphere, 4-0 if you count Wales losing to Fiji. But I think if you look at the Boks performance overall, you'd probably give them a 5.5, 6 out of 10 for this one. It wasn't their best. It wasn't as clinical as they were. I can understand some of the guys coming through, have given their first games in a while, not looking great. A guy like Validaru did good and bad things. Andre Pollard did good things, but also did quite a few things that you sort of got frustrated with. Bongi lost a few lineouts. You just go through it. The scrum was great, but there was other parts of the games that really needs to be worked on ahead of the England game, and they'll know that. They'll have that in mind, and they'll keep. This week we'll have a lot of work going, and Russell will drill them because Twickenham, they want to win that game. Looking against Scotland, well, I know there's a lot of pressure on Gregor Townsend. He hasn't beaten one of the big three yet. A lot of talk about him being under pressure if he doesn't come through. I think they did what they could. I think Scotland still doesn't have that X factor to beat the world's top sides. They're certainly great at club level. They certainly got some wonderful players, but to put it all together at the international level against a team as experienced as the Boks, they troubled them. Don't get me wrong, they troubled them and they did well against them. But I don't know. Even against in a poor Bok performance, the Boks were still good enough to get away with that with the win. I thought Hugh Jones had a great game. Tupeluto was exceptional as always, but they struggled in terms of just they kept it. The one thing they did do is they did beat the Boks quite often on the outside. They seemed to draw the man and seemed to get the ball on the outside of the defender quite a lot, and that was something that worked for them quite well. You can see they obviously watched how the Boks had trained and how the Boks had defended their whole time, and they tried to adapt to that, and that was pretty good. Their forwards were exceptionally good in their spoiling role, and try to be as physical as possible, but eventually it counted against them. So let's have a look at just talk a bit about the red card. I felt it was a bit unlucky for Scotland. It was a clear targeting the lower limbs. I didn't think it was a red card. I would have been happy with the yellow. I thought that certainly well done to TMO for spotting that, for Eben for pointing it out, and it certainly was something that had an effect on the game. But it is illegal and it has to be stamped out. The players know that. There's no place for that in the game, and they all know that. So it's a red card. Probably the red card. I'm not a big fan of it, the 20-minute red card, but it probably worked well in this instance for a situation like that. So I think let's talk about some individual performances as well in the game. I think Eben Etzebeth was a well-deserved man of the match. He played his heart out, stopped probably a certain try from Duan van der Merwe, made some massive tackles, some massive carries in the game. I haven't looked at the stats yet, so but I'm sure he's going to be up there as well. I thought there was a couple of others that stood out. Of course, the front rows did very well. Front row also looked a bit rusty for me. Ulrich tried his best. Him and Marco Quacha did some great things and did some average things. I thought Jaden struggled at the ruck, but with the pressure that was put on him quite a bit, the spoiling tactics that Scotland used, and it seemed to work quite a bit for them. So, I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into it. I think the Boks will be a lot better when they get to England. I thought in the back line, Andre Esterhuizen certainly had a barnstorming game. Agent of chaos he was. He made really his presence felt. And with Lekanyo Lekanyo, as the game went on, came more into his stride as well, and you saw that a lot more. So, I would have been pretty happy with the backline, seeing as they all had to play basically 80 minutes. I thought it was brave to bring Jaden off at 66 or 67 minutes. Because you could easily have gone one back down and it sort of paid off. But that's a gamble you take when you have a 7-1 bench. I didn't think the impact of the bench was as significant as it's been in past games. But certainly it worked as a slow poison, and as they got into gear, they sort of dominated. In those last sort of 5 minutes, they really dominated proceedings, and they certainly took the game away from Scotland. Scotland were never going to get back into that game at that stage. So overall, I mean, you can look at just finishing with the individuals. Makazole Mapimpi, of course, a vintage performance from him. Did everything he could when he got the ball. I thought Caden Moody also had some good results, but also made some telling knock-ons, handling errors when it shouldn't have been. So, but overall, I suppose, as I say, 6.5 out of 10, 7. I won't even say it's a 7 out of 10 performance. Most of these guys will know they could be a lot better. You play as well as the opposition let you, so I suppose you've got to take that in mind as well. And I think that's where we will leave it on that. England next week. England have lost against New Zealand and Australia. They're going to be desperate. Steve Borthwick will be under a lot of pressure. We're going to see them a lot of mental games this week. A lot of as the UK press gets involved. In a way, I'm glad Tom Curry's probably not going to be involved because of the concussion. But you can certainly see them bringing out some of the mind games for this week as well. It's going to be a tough week against England, but this is the big one. This is the one the Boks want to win. You can certainly see them pick their best side for this game, and then end up with some of the debutants playing against Wales next week as well. Yeah, I think when you look at this game, be happy with the win. We'll know that the Boks had some moments where they got lucky. I know Scotland were unlucky in some things, but at the end of the day, that's what a champion team does. They win when they play badly, and that's what the Boks did to me for me today. I'm sitting over here. Some of you might get an idea where I am. It's a new country, it's a new place. Those of you who guessed the last venue right, you might be able to work out this one. It's a small country. It's got some very good football players, but some of them bite. And yeah, it's fun traveling around here. Still, it was interesting. I watched the game on a VPN, on my phone, on a bus and a ferry. It was quite interesting as well. But thanks to modern technology, you can still watch the game. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you thought of the Boks, if you agreed on everything. If you didn't, where do you think Scotland lost it? Where do you think the Boks won it? Love to hear your thoughts as always. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Cheers.